Over the past 8 months, New Delhi has signed as many major deals and more with other countries in a diplomatic whirlwind offensive stretching right across the world. There was Cyprus in June 2025, the UK in July, EFTA or Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, Switzerland in October, Oman in December, New Zealand also last month, the EU in January this year, the US this month, Malaysia and Greece also in February, and both Brazil and Canada in the works, with visits next week and next month. So what is driving this deal-making? Is this India's great opening up? Has India arrived? And where does this all place the country for the future? Indeed, is the answer to that question with Greece's Defence Minister. Watch.
See India as a key partner, as a friend, but also as an upcoming superpower.
Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Ian Kavat. To discuss this and more, I'm joined by, from New Delhi, Shripana Pathak, O.P. Jindal Global University Professor and Centre for Northeast Asian Studies Director. We also have in the studio Sun Ming-Si, Institute for National Defence and Security Research Fellow, and Sana Hashmi, Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation Fellow. A very warm welcome to Sana and Dr. Shen in the studio and also Shripana online. Thank you for joining us. So in the show today, we will mostly focus on 4 of these mega deals: Greece, the EU, the US and Canada. But first, let's talk about India's record deal-making as a whole. So coming to you first, Sana, what's behind it all?
I think it's an old process that India has been trying to open up its market to countries in the West. And from being a cautious country to being an open market is something that has been in the works for a very, very long time for India. But then India is a lucrative market, and also in the past couple of years, what we have seen that a number of countries are moving away from China and looking for China plus one model. So India is absolutely a perfect fit for that. Then India is also looking to be an important economic partner to the West, an important country in the Indo-Pacific. I always say that India is more pro-West than the West understand. So I think this is just one of the indicators of that.
Obviously, the China factor has accelerated that. Is there anything else, particularly in the past year, that has done that? And if you could provide from your security background.
Yes, we can see that this for the trade agreement, and India signed the agreement with Greece, with the EU, with the United States, and also Canada. And these 4 country or organizations, you can see that they already have some tariff conflict between among these countries. For example, EU and United States, and Canada and United States.
So do you believe that it's about hedging against?
No, I think because India have a tradition of non-alignment. India right now try to open the market for the EU country, so there's a chance for India. If China production higher price in the EU market, and then India production got a cheaper price to enter the EU, I think that the market will change in EU or even the Greece or even Canada or United States.
Now let's kick off with the Greece defence cooperation. Indian Defence Minister Rajat Singh and his Greek counterpart Nikos Dendias signed a joint declaration of intent on strengthening defence industrial cooperation and a bilateral military cooperation plan for 2026, outlining military engagements between the armed forces of both countries. The 2 sides held their first maritime exercise in the Mediterranean Sea in September last year, which included anti-submarine warfare. Crucially, India and Greece are also the bookends of the IMEC, or India-Middle East Economic Corridor, linking India to Europe via sea lanes and land corridors. Now, bypassing the Suez Canal, this infrastructure project is dubbed part of the West's rival to China's Belt and Road Initiative, with Greece's Piraeus port the final launchpad into Europe. According to First Post, India has provided Greece with its Pinaka rockets and also Tatar's armoured infantry vehicles and mounted guns. Last year, India reportedly offered a cruise missile as well. So going to Shripana in New Delhi. Now, Turkey's support for Pakistan is the obvious driver for this deepening defence cooperation because, as the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So that would be Greece. But there's also a China element. How is that?
So the China element adds a more nuanced, indirect layer rather than being the primary driver like Turkey. Greece has deep economic ties, as you mentioned, with China, most notably through majority Chinese state-owned control via COSCO shipping, the port of Piraeus, Greece's largest port and key hub. So this creates a strategic vulnerability for Greece. As China's BRI investments, they give Beijing a strategic leverage in Greek infrastructure and economy. For India, this poses a challenge in connectivity in the IMEC, as you mentioned, where Piraeus is positioned as a potential European gateway. So building greater trust and political alignment to encourage Greece to diversify port or infrastructure dependencies away from China. That's a win for India. Or enhancing overall bilateral leverage, making Greece a more reliable European entry point, less susceptible to China's way. Or reinforcing shared interests in a rules-based world order, maritime security, countering unilateral actions. So this deal, in these many ways, thus is a win-win for both India and Greece. And the China fact is there.
After Panama Canal, would this be safe for India and for the countries involved to use that Piraeus port, which is 67% China-owned through COSCO shipping giant?
After Panama Canal, a lot of things have changed, and the multilateral world order has come under immense strain. But the fact also is that having certain leeways or having certain points is always better than having nothing at all. If, God forbid, if a Panama Canal sort of thing happens, well, there will be other sorts of steps which would be taken. But at least having a deal is better than having no deal at all.
Okay, Sana, just going back to the reasons why Greece is keen to sign these deals with India, and just going back to what the defense minister said, he said India is a key partner, it's a friend, and an upcoming superpower.
I think there are a number of reasons why a lot of countries, specifically in the West and Europe, are looking towards India, including Greece. There are, of course, strategic rationales, there are economic rationales. One is that India is the most effective counterbalance to China. So what do you have? US is being so unpredictable right now, and we all know that the US-EU relation right now are not at its best. So what are the options for the EU countries, European countries? You either look at China or you either look at India. They're looking at both, but I think there's more reliability with India. And so, of course, there are geopolitical constraints. So, when you have to cooperate with one of the countries, major countries in Asia, they would definitely choose India over China, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. Then, of course, there are economic interests. Diversification is not going only with respect to China, but also with respect to the US. So, of course, India becomes a natural partner, but also infrastructure. India, Middle East, Europe corridor. So definitely Greece wants to position itself as India's gateway to Europe. India is becoming one of the top key countries for cooperation within the Indo-Pacific. And US has actually lost its place in the Indo-Pacific. So I think India or perhaps Japan are taking the center stage.
Very fascinating concept there. Dr. Shen, so how do you view this defense industrial cooperation, and does it actually, reflect what Sana just mentioned, this sort of rising up of Japan, India, and overtaking perhaps the US?
Yeah, for the defense cooperation between India and Greece, I think the first thing is the defense industry or on sale, because India thinks that Greece may be the first country in Europe that can export the India weapon system. So this is very important. This is the beginning. But we know in West Europe already have many countries that have their own defense industry. But maybe Central or East Europe can maybe the next country. Because right now India weapon system, for example, the BrahMos cruise missile, Thaw artillery, the main market is focused on Philippines, Vietnam, Southeast country, maybe the next would be the Europe. But we know that India also got some weapon system from Europe. Indo-Pacific also is very concerned by India for their own interest because of China. And then I think India right now, their defense industrial challenge, of course, India right now maybe number 5 export country, but the challenge is, we know they focus on the artillery, focus on the cruise missile, but India right now, they try to develop their own advanced fighter. But a little bit the problem about this, because they cannot get more engine from the United States. So they cannot develop their own engine. So India right now also try to seek more cooperation with United States. And India and United States already signed many agreements about the defense industry. I think this is also very important.
Okay, so to that point, after signing what was dubbed the mother of all trade deals with the EU in January, giving Delhi preferential access to all 27 EU states, India and the US then announced an interim trade deal this week after months of hard negotiations. Now, this was Donald Trump's account of the development. It was an honor to speak with Prime Minister Modi of India this morning. He's one of my greatest friends and a powerful and respected leader of his country. We spoke about many things, including trade and ending the war with Russia and Ukraine. He agreed to stop buying Russian oil and to buy much more from the US and potentially Venezuela. Effective immediately, we agreed to a trade deal between the US and India, whereby we will charge a reduced reciprocal tariff, lowering it from 25% to 18%. They will likewise move forward to reduce their tariffs and non-tariff barriers against the United States to zero. The Prime Minister also committed to buy American at a much higher level, in addition to over $500 billion of US energy, technology, agricultural, coal, and many other products. But in the last few days, four significant changes were made to the joint fact sheet, which initially repeated the contents of Trump's post. Now, it now removes certain pulses from this sentence. India will eliminate or reduce tariffs on all US industrial goods and a wide range of US food and agricultural products. It also says India intends to buy more American products. Intends now replaces commits, and US agriculture has been removed. Furthermore, it now says India committed to negotiate a robust set of bilateral digital trade rules, rather than saying India would, quote, remove digital sales tax, which Delhi applies to US internet companies like Facebook and Google. So bringing in Shripana, in simple terms, what do those changes mean for India?
It's a big diplomatic and economic win for India because intends is non-binding language. It keeps the door open for future increased imports if it has benefits. It removes any sense of hard obligation or quota, which could pressure Indian policymakers or expose the deal to any sort of criticism. So India now retains full flexibility and sovereignty over its import decisions. When we talk about the deletion of certain pulses, that deletion is excellent news because pulses remain fully protected with no tariff reductions or market access openings for US pulses. So again, that's also a win. Talking about the DST, that preserves India's policy autonomy in a high growth area. The DST is a key tool for fair taxation of global giants like Google, Meta, Amazon, etc., ensuring that they pay taxes where value is created. Overall, these are signs of India's effective diplomacy and leverage, and it comes right after the massive India-EU trade deal, the mother of all deals. The US immediately came in and wanted to sign such a pact because it was realized that India is a country which cannot really be wished away. So overall, it's a win for India.
Okay. There have been critics within India. They say, for example, that farmers are not adequately protected. Is there any truth to that?
Farmers have been adequately protected because, unfortunately, we live in a digital age and there are multiple narratives which keep getting propped up. Now, given the fact that India is an agrarian country, there will be certain of these comments or certain of these narratives. But the government has come up again and again. There have been huge press releases, statements from the Ministry of Commerce as to how pulses, they are a staple food in India. Any concession here, it has not been given because it's politically ultra sensitive because of the impacts on farmers and so on. So there will be, of course, when there are negotiations, not everything from both the sides of the government is available for full public view or scrutiny, and which is why certain narratives, because of confusions, come in. But as of now, The deal has it's an interim deal. B, it hasn't even kicked in. So the fears are a bit too premature. From my personal belief, I don't think there is any sort of leeway which has been given to the US over and above consideration for Indian farmers.
Okay, Sana, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, as in I would say that first of all, we really have to commend India's negotiating skills. Signing and getting the US onto the table, I think it's a big development. But also when we look at India's politically sensitive areas and farmers, I don't think it is going to be at the cost of politically sensitive areas. And I think what India is doing, India is cautiously and calibrating, opening, liberalization happening there. But I don't think it is just going to surrender to the US interest. India's interest comes first. And I think this is something that the leadership has been saying for a very, very long time.
So in terms of that interest, that national interest for India, obviously competition with China, which is the economic behemoth in the region, is always in the background. So can we see, what we said at the top of the show, this, as you said, liberalization, this opening up of a country that's very traditionally sort of protected its markets. Do you see that now India is very firmly on this path to, what the Greek defense minister said, becoming a superpower?
If you ask me, I would say that it's absolutely on the path, and India has been working towards that path for a very long time, and we have reasons to say that. It is a partner for all. No matter who comes to India, this is one of the first sentences that we hear, that India is a key economic partner, security partner. Then I don't think that it's just about India being an effective counterbalance to China. I don't think it's about China versus India. But also, having said that, India is in the path to become a superpower, I would say that India's intention is not really to be a superpower. India's intention is to be a friendly power to the countries. So India has friends. India doesn't really have conflicts with a lot of countries. The neighborhood is a different case altogether. Who doesn't have animosity towards its neighbor? But largely, India is viewed as a friendly nation. And I think this is what India wants to maintain. India doesn't want to project hegemonic tendencies. India wants to be more inclusive and wants to have this collective agenda where everyone is growing together. And what India believes in multipolarity, what India believes in strategic autonomy, issue-based coalition. So even when we talk about all these deals, these are on the basis of the interest of the countries that are signing these deals with India and on the basis of the interest of India.
Dr. Shen, so Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, obviously has taken issue with the fact that the US has announced that India will stop buying Russian oil. Obviously, that's then paved the way for the removal of the so-called punitive 25% tariff. And he's pointed out that nothing has come from India itself. Now, obviously, this is highly sensitive. Now, how does and how is India managing this? It wants to keep the relationship with Russia.
We know that India imported Russia oil because India can use this oil power to the economic development and also can transfer this oil to another country. So India got a huge interest or money from this from Russia oil import. So I'm very surprised that India agreed that refused to import that Russia oil. A little bit surprised.
As in that you doubt that they actually gave that promise?
I'm not sure because Trump asked India buy the oil from United States or Venezuela. But you can see that the distance from South America to India is a long range.
So then it wouldn't be in India's national interest to buy expensive
Yes, I know that because you pay more cost from Venezuela or United States. I think Trump, his global grand strategy intent is to try to force Russia to stop the war with Ukraine. Like Russia to talk with the Ukraine or to talk with the United States. But right now, China refused to stop import from Russia, but India agreed. I think will make a little bit pressure to the Russia in the Russia-Ukraine war.
Okay. Now, Canada ties have been fraught for a few years under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, but they now appear to be thawing under new leader Mark Carney. Carney won a lot of friends around the world for his World Economic Forum speech in Davos, perceived as him standing up to Donald Trump and rallying together middle powers against what has been described as the unreliability of the US. Bringing Shripana back in, how did India take or read that Carney speech? Is sort of middle power cooperation very much the name of the game now?
So what Carney said is what India it's already been doing it for the last 1 year since, US became a very non-credible partner and has been causing all sorts of shockwaves across the globe. All these FTAs which you mentioned and we talked about and we discussed, these are clear signs as to how middle powers can actually engage. And it doesn't really have to be the two great powers which are both unreliable and untrustworthy at the moment. So from an Indian perspective, it echoes India's own experiences with all these great power transactionalism, US tariffs, pressure on Russia ties, China's coercion. Carney's push for a middle power solidarity, it fits neatly with what India has been doing or India's multi-alignment strategies. Given the fact that India is a rising giant with 1.4 billion people, the fastest growing major economy in the world, Carney's blueprint offers useful ideas on resilience and diversification. And if one wants to see the examples of how this can be practiced, India is the perfect example here. So there was no official agreement or pushback from the Indian government or the MEA or any sort of validation of what Carney said. But it's a welcome speech. The tone has been appreciative of Carney's realism, and some see it as indirectly validating India's long-held view that the old order has been fraying, new conditions are needed.
Sana, India's long-held view, precisely that. In your view, did India ever put up the sign in the shop window?
I think India has been doing it since forever, as in specifically under Modi government and since Foreign Minister Jaishankar came. These are the terms, phrases that we have been hearing: multipolarity, collective growth, strategic autonomy. And I think specifically if we talk about Carney's speech, I think India and Canada were never supposed to fight. But they fought, but I feel that this is very affirmative, this is very positive. And I do feel that now that US is hardly there, China is not at all a reliable partner. In fact, it's a threat, and it's a recognized threat. So I feel that it's a welcoming development that Canada is talking India's language. And I see a lot of hope, but I think there will be a lot of caution from India's side. And India is not going to accept any alliance type partnership. So whatever they have to ask from India, it has to be based on the issues, it has to be transactional, and this is what the mantra of international politics in the recent years. So I feel that with respect to Canada, India, with respect to multipolarity, with respect to middle powers rising, we are on the right path, but I think these are all words for now. We have to see if there are actually actions that are being followed after the big speeches.
Dr. Shen, we spoke about how Canada, in a sense, has vocalized essentially what India's position always was. Now, Carney was berated by Donald Trump after he visited Beijing to strike deals with Xi Jinping in January. How do you see India's stance in relation to China?
We know that in recent 2 years, the tension between India and China a little bit soft. Because I think right now is the third term of the Modi, and then next election will be the other. And then because Modi cannot get the majority in the Congress, so his policy a little bit soft than before. And then after the border negotiation, you can see that India and China military already withdraw a long distance right now. So I think two countries already think that right now cannot bring in conflict or war in the border. But two countries already prepared the worst case scenario. You can see that India also establish or construct many CI near the border.
CIs?
CI, critical infrastructure.
Okay.
And China also deployed some new fighter like a J-20 near the border. They all prepare the worst case scenario.
Final question to Shripana. Shripana, you spoke about India being a rising giant. Sana said that India actually does not aspire to be a superpower. Do you believe that it aspires to be a leader, though, especially in its own region? And if that is the case, then I guess, so that region being the Indo-Pacific, then it would need to challenge both the US and China in the future. Do you think that's the case?
See, India's relations or foreign policies always are on a mutual trust and mutual partnership sort of lenses. India has never been hegemonic in ways that China has been or even the US has been. But of course, the safest bet for any country in the world is to be the most powerful so that other countries do not attack it. However, even in 2023, when the G20 was held in New Delhi, the theme which India promoted was one world, one family, implying that even though India held the presidency of this very important grouping, it still sees the world as one family. But of course, in a family, there are partners which cross the red lines. Sometimes it is Pakistan, a lot of times it's Pakistan, a lot of times it's the PRC. But still, the attempt is to focus and treat the world as a family. If red lines are crossed again and again, if it's a sovereignty-related issues, then India would push back. But that being said, seeking hegemony in ways in which China does, or in ways in which the US is the leader, is not something which is India's cultural or civilizational outlook. So it would want parity, it wants equality, but not at the cost of others.
Okay, that's wonderful. We'll have to end the show there. Thank you so much, Shaming Shi and Sana Hashmi in the studio, and also Shripana Pathak online from New Delhi. Thank you for joining. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. See you next time.